Now, let's move on to this week, and we can now talk about not only Daytona, but of course Atlanta as well, as far as the most similar tracks to Talladega. And we can go back now to also where I can legitimately ask you, how many drivers do you think we correctly predicted together? Because you have 7, right?
Yeah, I didn't do many. Usually, Talladega, Daytona, I've got a chapter full of drivers, I feel like. But that strategy worked last week. I'm going back with it.
Yeah, we all had Byron, and you were able to make up some ground. But you've still got to. And if you hit one this week, you're back into it, based on
Yep.
how much money that you have dedicated to the drivers in this race. So, out of the 7, how many do you think CJ and I both
I'm going to
predicted?
say 5.
4.
4. Okay, close.
4.
Keselowski?
Correct.
Blaney?
Correct.
Hamlin?
Correct.
It's 3.
One
so
more.
One more. Oh boy.
You haven't been 100% in a while.
No, I haven't. I'm trying to think of it. It's gotta be Briscoe?
No. I was the only one that didn't do Briscoe. Usually
did my-
CJ is the one that doesn't have the same
Yeah, I was to
pick.
say, usually
I almost had it. He was on my original list, and I needed to clear some room, and I didn't. And he was one of them. We were one of the last ones.
Who was my other? I'm trying to think of who else I had. That
And the
was
funny
in that
thing
little-
too is that one of the other drivers, CJ also had it, and I did not. That should maybe give you another hint of who.
So it leaves down to, is it Elliott?
That's the hint, but in the wrong way, because I told you before I'm not taking him. So
Yeah,
that should have been an indication that
It was. But I was like, well, did you end up taking him?
No,
No.
I
So then
didn't.
it's got to be, who's the one I'm missing?
Kyle.
So I did Brad. Kyle. Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. I was like, there's got to be, because my 2 long shots, he gave that hint. I was like, okay, it's not the other one. So it was down to, it was Elliott, and I was spacing who my other guy was. Kyle. That would make sense.
Yep. So, all right, let's talk just quickly about the track itself. Some notes. Chevy's won the last 3. The reason why this is important, it's been all with the new car. So Let's keep an eye on that. Only 1 of the last 9 winners started in the top 4 rows, meaning qualifying don't matter. That, by the way, was Denny Hamlin, who won from the pole in 2020. The average
They didn't qualify then either. So
they didn't.
Remember they just
okay. I never remember
lined
which
up
year
and started.
it is. Yeah. The average winning starting position in the last 5 races is 16th. So as long as you're in the top 20, that's really all that matters. And I think we're at 7 straight races, different driver. We had 7 different drivers.
Yeah, I believe 7. Also got 8 times since '95. That's it. This driver picked up his first or second career win at Talladega. So
8
guys
times since '95.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not likely.
First or second win. Well,
first or second.
I mean, who could that be? Gibbs. How about Briscoe? How many does he have?
1.
Briscoe. That'd be 2.
Priest, Suarez,
Haley.
Haley, Cindric.
Okay, so there's a bunch of guys out there.
But the main thing, this is, well, I guess we could roll in. I'll talk Ford first. So Chevy is 1, like you said, 3 in a row. Ford has just dominated lap sled. That's why this is a heavyweight title bout between these two. Toyota's won 2 of the last 3 fall races there, but they've only won 3 times at Talladega in the last 28. We know they don't win a lot in Daytona or Atlanta either. So you really look at Ford and Chevy. Ford led 122 of 212 laps the Daytona 500, 110 of 163 in the Coke Zero Sugar 400. So that's Daytona. 88 of 196 here in the spring. 221 of 260 in Atlanta 1, and 145 of 185 in Atlanta 2. And if you add that all up, they've led 67.3% of the laps on super speedways this year, 686 out of 1,018. But they're only 2 for 5 in wins this year. Chevy, on the other hand, they've only led 174 laps on these tracks this season, but have won 3 times.
All
So
right.
Ford's leading the lap, Chevy's taking the wins.
Okay. That's why Toyota's a long shot.
That's why Toyota's where they are. But the thing you've got to watch, though, 4 of the last 5 Talladega playoff winners were outside the top 8. So they're in the cut zone, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th in points. And they for this entering this weekend, and they won. So, and that includes Bubba, who wasn't in the playoffs in 2021. Also, out of the 9 years we've been running this race in the playoffs, 8 of them were won by a playoff driver, Bubba being the one that's not. So, good chance a playoff driver is probably going to win. An even better chance he's probably sitting in the bottom 4 of the playoffs right now. And bottom 4 meaning that's in. Cough, cough, Ryan Blaney.
Interesting.
All stars are aligning his direction right now. So,
and that's why he's your top pick.
That's why he's my top pick. And in the opposite way we talked about for Daytona, remember I asked the reason that race you might see a driver that's already won a race that season is because these wild card guys aren't going to push another wild card guy to a win. They need a spot. That hence Keselowski and Buescher being 1-2 because they've already had wins and they were Keselowski didn't win at that point, but he was already clinched a spot. They were already in the playoffs. You could help those guys. This weekend, you could help a guy in theory not in the playoffs already because they're not going to hurt you if they win. But on the flip side, those guys are more than likely to help you because Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, as an example, they don't need them to win. They're going to try to push Blaney. So you got that drafting help. Stuart Haas, really good in Daytona. They had a lot of speed. But Fords, we've seen align more. Hey, we got to help each other. Well, knowing that this is their track, that if they're going to get multiple guys to the round of 8, they're all going to line up. I think the Stuart Haas cars are all fast. They're going to draft with the 2 Roush guys and Blaney. Hey, let's push them. They'll help us if we win. Let's all play manufacturer together. So there's strength in numbers. That's why I think you're probably going to see a playoff guy win again because their teammates are going to – you don't have that awkwardness of who do we push. Their teammates are going to push them. Just like last week, we talked about, well, do you think Logano just kind of punts this race and focuses next year? No. Clearly, that's what they did. I mean, he was nowhere to be found all day. So this race again, I think you're going to see Logano and Cindric and the Stuart Haas guys.
Makes sense.
Let's go out. Let's go out and help these 3.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you're going to see maybe a little bit of an opposite type feel. But stage points are going to be a thing, and it's close. And who's going to risk them? And I looked because I got it, the book here. And interestingly enough, Ryan Blaney didn't take stage points in either race at Daytona. Didn't take stage points here in the spring either. So their strategies may not be the stage points, but they're only 7 points behind. Stage points get you to the good side. So I'm curious if their strategy changes, but he's just been so good here.
I don't think so because let's remember, this is why we said it doesn't matter. I think it really trying to be cautious at one of these tracks is forget it because look, and I know you might think it's leading right into the hands of people who say you should avoid being up front, but Blaney was in first place. What was it? The Daytona race, I believe, the last one, when somebody
pushed him up into the wall. Yeah,
it's like, so that's not what you're really expecting. Usually, you're in first, you're okay.
Yep.
That's what you've now. Anybody's usually a couple of rows back. That starts up front. So that is just that's a so. But my point though is actually normally if you lead one of these races and you are up front, normally you should be okay. So
yes, and don't forget too that this package, it's hard to make your way through the field. Remember, they kind of are just 2 by 2.
Yep.
It's hard to make any ground. So track position is a thing. You might as well. It doesn't matter where you are. You could get caught up in something. So you might as well just be up front.
Might as well.
So that's a thing. It's definitely a thing to watch. But
Being first is a much better position than being anywhere else in the top 20.
it is, and I feel these odds reflect it. They got the right guys
Yeah.
stats wise up front. I mean, it's not a fluke. The top four are all Fords. That's the one they're going. They're telling you right now that. And who would have thought 2 years ago that, or last year even, two of the top four odds are going to be Roush Fenway,
Yeah, right.
RFK
Yeah,
Racing.
well,
There you
that's
are.
the year. Yeah, that's
But
it.
yep. So.
But there are a couple of good bargains here as well.
Oh, for sure.
That we'll get into. But we can start with the team there of Keselowski and Buescher, 11-1 and 12-1. And now the interesting thing with Keselowski is he is the only playoff driver with top tens in every race. So that's a good thing. He's right now. He's in the top 8, but the problem is he's just not comfortably in the top 8, and even the slightest bad race is going to put him in danger. So the question is, I got to think that they're just not in a comfort zone. I don't think they're in a comfort zone where they can just, let's try to stay out of trouble and finish in the top 10. I just don't think that. I think the philosophy's got to be to win. And as far as both of them are concerned, of course, Buescher had the win at Daytona, and he was fourth, I believe, at the 500. So,
Yep.
And
Buescher, yep, fourth, yep.
And he has a runner-up in 2 Xfinity Series races at Talladega, and this is before he became, the Chris Buescher we know of today. Third earlier this year. Keselowski fifth earlier this year at this track. Now, here's the thing, though. This is why I think Keselowski's stats are starting to be a little bit misleading as far as Talladega. This is not the Keselowski from, let's say, 4 years ago. Let's say 4 years ago, he is really a Talladega monster stats-wise. But since then, he's only led 22 laps in his last 7 races at Talladega. His win in 2022 was the last lap. So he didn't do anything really there except just win the last lap. And last year with the new car, he finished 23rd and 24th. So this year, better year. Of course, we know that from last year. He's being the favorite, no problem with that. I think he should be right there. I can understand why he's a point above everybody else with the 6 wins and the 10 top 5s. Second at Daytona in August as well, helping push a win. But the fact is like I said, he's still very good there. There's no question, but he's not the definite, I have to take him, guaranteed lock that he was just about 4 years ago.
No, yeah, he's closer to obviously the field because of that, but I just looked at it with 3 top 5s, his last 5 there. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, he's running well. He's got the most super speedway points. That's counting the 2 Daytona, the 2 Atlanta, and the Talladega. So that, out of 5 races, his 188 points are most than anybody else. His 116 laps led are second most. In Daytona 500, remember, him and Buescher were 1-2, and then Kyle and Austin Dillon pushed their way by him late, and they were 1-2, and those guys were 3-4. Then the caution comes out.
Yeah.
And the restart, Keselowski, who had a top 5, he got caught up in that crash with Dillon. If not, he's been top 6 at second, fifth, sixth, second. And so it just kind of, if you follow the trends, he's probably got a top 5, not necessarily a win. If he goes 2-5, 6-2, he probably got another 5th or 6th coming. But that's a good finish. He's up front. That's what you need. And he's going to have all that forward drafting help. So,
but why did you, the question I have, because I put money on both drivers, and actually a little bit more on Buescher. Why did you decide to go no Buescher?
The thing with him that scared me was 16 top 5 or 16 Talladega starts, 1 top 5. That's the thing that kind of like, is he going to win? And he was outside the Daytona 500, which he was 4th in. He was 35th, 13th, and 15th on those other races. So I'm like, that scared me a little bit. Granted, I'm sorry, not 13th, 3rd. He was 3rd here, but he led one lap led last year. You got to go down a few races, the 7, and then that's it since 2021. So 8 laps led. I just winning the Coke Zero Sugar 400 in this race. I'm like, is that too good to be true? Winning 2 in a row at 13-1. So I went more heavily, took his money that I would have went on him, and just threw it all to
All
Blaney.
on
I just
Kozlowski.
Kozlowski and Blaney. Those are my two that I just feel the best about.
The 12-1 shots. So we already mentioned Busher, but we could talk about the other teammate, Blaney and Logano. We could throw Cindric in there as well. Not that nobody picked Cindric this week. So, as a matter of fact, CJ was the only one that took Logano. And I was thinking of taking Logano from my first go around, but I would have to invest a lot more, say, on Logano than Briscoe, let's say, if he's also one of the last guys. And I didn't like the fact that Logano's average finish in the last 8 races at Talladega is 23rd.
Yeah.
And in the new car, 30th, 27th, and 32nd. Because look, we can say all we want to, and we've said this before over and over again, as much as these are the most similar tracks, the Super Speedway is these 3, they're just not totally similar. Talladega is different from Daytona and definitely Atlanta. And I think that's important to note because Logano's 2nd and 5th at Daytona this year, and he won Atlanta and finished 4th at Atlanta. So he's very good there. But there's something about Talladega that hasn't really worked out for him so far, whether it's just luck, whatever it is. And then you throw in what you said, definitely, is that if he's there with Blaney, we know who is getting pushed. And Blaney, he's just a no-brainer in these situations. We still think he's either tied for or the best super speedway driver as of today. There's nobody better, let's just put it that way. He was 2nd this year, 2nd last year, and 11th. He led a minimum of 23 laps in all 3 races with the new car here. And we know, of course, this is pretty much the deal for Ryan Blaney. If he gets in a wreck or just for whatever reason he finishes outside the top 20 on a track that he is, because there's no other track that he can look around and say I'm the best. If he doesn't take advantage of that, he's not going to probably move on.
Yeah, this is the one you hear you stick in ball sports. I had that one circled. That's for Blaney. This is 4 top 2 finishes his last date there. 2 wins. Super Speedways this season. 8th, 7th, 2nd, 9th, 36. We talked about why he was 36. He was right up front and got punted. He's got the 7th most points, 149 of them scored this season. 4th most laps led. He fits all those trends, as I said, playoff driver and below the top 8 and the points. So just a no-brainer. Runner-up the last 2 there. I mean, you don't get any better than that. And then you go down to, other than winning, you get down to 2018, this race in 2018. All those races, he's led at least 4 laps here. It's not easy to do to lead laps in all those races. He did, except this race in 2021. So I feel really good about him. His teammate, as you said, Logano, he's going to be more of a pusher than a guy that's going to be the one getting pushed. But I wrote my first paragraph to the covers part was he's got the 2nd most points, 177. He's got the most laps led, or 2nd most points and 2nd most laps led, 175 of those. 3-time Talladega winner. But I'm fading him. And the reason, as you said, 5 of his last 6, Talladega, 26th or worse. 1 top 10 his last 7, 30th in the spring. It just doesn't add up for a guy for 12-1.
And he's not a playoff
driver. He's not a playoff driver. So I just feel like they're going to do everything they can. And depending on where Blaney sits, if Blaney's out of it, we'll just say something happens and it's the 2 Roush cars.
He might be helping them.
Logano, he's probably helping them.
Yeah.
The Fords are going to try to work together here. Yep. So I just doesn't add up for a guy 12-1. Now, if he was 16, 18, 20-1, sure, maybe we'll open up another door. But no, not when you could go with Blaney, who's same odds with better stats.
14-1. There's Wallace, Elliott, the defending champ, and Byron. And out of that group, again, I said I did not take Elliott, but I did take Wallace. You did not take Wallace. And none of us took Byron to win back-to-back. So we take a look there. And Wallace, look, he has the win, and that's why it's good enough for me. I know he hasn't really done a whole lot other than the win, but we know he's a good super speedway driver. He led 35 laps this year and didn't finish well. I guess what he got into an accident. Probably is that what happened with
I
Wallace
think
earlier this
so.
year.
Yeah.
Elliott, meanwhile, look, I said why I'm not taking him, but if you look at it, he was fourth at Daytona in August, and that's solid, all things considered. He is the defending champ. I said that, but he's only led 31 laps in his last 5 races here. Byron asking him to win back-to-back races when he doesn't need it, just like you said with the situation with Blaney. I would think that Byron's got other drivers, including Kyle Larson. Not that I expect Kyle Larson to be up there for Byron to push him, but he's definitely going to give way if there's the reason to. Seventh earlier this year, Byron, runner-up in 21, was his best finish because he's never won at Talladega. And, of course, he won Atlanta. And that was, as we said before, that was a pretty fortunate win. That was the one that was cut short with the rain.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So out of those 3 drivers, I just felt Wallace would be the better of the 3. So I put a few bucks on Wallace. You, though, decided to go with Elliott out of the 3.
Yeah, and I remember Elliott's still in the playoffs, technically, this owners race. So he's won 2 of the last 8 there. 7th and 1st last year. Looked decent in the 400 back in August. So I thought, well, I chuckled too. And he said Byron push him if he's up there pushing Larson. It's not going to happen. But he would push Elliott. And I just Byron's probably a better fantasy play than an actual winner this week. He's not going to win 2 straight, and unless everybody starts wrecking and he's sitting there again. But he's going to push Elliott over getting help himself. I think they need to get Elliott into the next round, owners race wise, which makes more sense. And he's got better stats. Wallace scared me in the sense, he won in 2021, and he was runner-up in the 2021 Daytona 500. But that win is only finished better than 14th and 11 Cup tries at Talladega. And his Xfinity finishes were 31st, 20th, 13th, 13th. And then I looked on the season, like, well, maybe I missed it. Maybe it's just bad luck. He's got the 22nd most super speedway points scored this season at 90. And you look at his finishes, 20th, 27th, 28th, 25th, and 12th, which didn't bode well for 14-1. That's why I was like, that doesn't scream a 14-1 driver right now. That's reaching. Granted, he fits the criteria of a playoff driver below the cut line right now to win, but those stats tell me that's not 14-1. If I just take his name off of it. So
well, the thing with Wallace though is that he doesn't really have great stats. Period. Anywhere. No. So it's even this year as a playoff driver, it's like really the fact that he's still in the playoffs is kind of mind-boggling at this point, but. And they've clearly had the best season, but that doesn't mean it's easy to look back at his resume and go, well, here's all the good things he's done, because he really hasn't done a lot of good things. This was the year. This was the best year he's had. And it's good, but it's not like, wow, Bubba Wallace is going to win the championship. That's why he's 50-1 still to win the championship. Yep. And
he does his damage in the first stage. I mean, he scored stage points the first stage, the last 3 races, and really it's 5, 6, 8 of the last 10. He does well at the super speedways early, but then something happens and caught up in something. Yeah, I think he's close enough, obviously, to the cut line. Gobble up those stage points and see if you can get by. I think that's their path.
Yeah.
And it's the Toyota factor too. They haven't done a lot of winning there, and the only other than him,
there you go.
The other one was Hamlin.
Yeah.
So I thought a little safer with Elliott on that groupie.
And then we see at Hamlin at 16-1 and Kyle at 18-1, and we all took these guys. Hamlin is actually my second choice behind Blaney, or co-choice with Blaney. Hamlin is right there with Blaney, with Keselowski. I feel like it's a bargain getting 16-1 with Hamlin. Now, maybe they're thinking he's going to be cautious because he's second in points and he doesn't need to get himself in trouble like Larson last week and put him in a position and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I just don't really see that with Denny Hamlin, especially at a super speedway. I think he's going to try to win the race. He was 17th from the pole this year, and I don't know how many poles were given to him, but he does have 4 out of the last 7 at Talladega. and he's led at least 6 laps in his last 7 races. A lot more than 6 in some of those 7 too. So yeah, I mean at 16-1, and even Kyle at 18-1, I think we're getting a good number here because he won earlier this year. So this is the guy that won earlier this year. He's 18-1, and he had a couple good results at Atlanta. He was third in one of the races here last year. So with the new car, Kyle's been very good at this track, and we know the position he's in. I mean, you know, he kind of, I'm sure he feels I got to win this race if I have a shot. And so, yeah, at 18-1, definitely these two guys with their odds, with their experience, definitely take these two guys.
What's weird is they've had a different path to where they are right now. You look at Hamlin, he's got 1 top 10 in his last 10 super speedway races, if you count them, which is odd.
Sort of like Harvick. Harvick's been like that too. It's been like all of a sudden you look at Harvick's record and you're like, wait, didn't he used to be really good with this? But it's changed over the years.
It has, and he's only got the 12th most points on super speedways this year, which was shocking to me. I'm like, well, he's not finishing well, and he's got 1. However, this Talladega race, this fall race, of any of them, this has been his race. He's got 6 top 7s in his last 10. He's got 7 straight, or I'm sorry, that's the 6 top 7 in his last 10 Talladega starts in general. He's got 7 straight top 7s in the fall race. He's always there. And as you said, he's got a good chunk of points he's ahead right now, where it's like, just don't screw it up, which also tells me he could just ride around and be there at the end. He doesn't have to worry about if it gets dicey. He could get up there in stage points like, hey, this is getting dicey. I'm bailing. I don't need him. I'd rather be there in the end. I think he's going to be there in the end. And as we've seen attrition happen in these races and guys get taken out, Hamlin should be there. I think that's why this fall race he's so good, is he doesn't race to where he's mixing it up early. He just gets to the end, and that's why he finishes there. Why change with this big of a gap?
Yeah.
And we've seen it. If you're there in the end, you got a shot. So that's a big bargain for a guy that's probably going to be there in the end. For the Kyle thing, it scared me a little bit was he's only 2 for 36 at Talladega. One of them was the spring race. And his last 9 fall Talladega finishes have been the opposite. He's been 11th or worse. His last 6, 30th, 27th, 26th, 19th, 27th, 27th again, and 20th. So he hasn't been great in this race where Hamlin has. However, he's got the 3rd most points on super speedways this season. You can't overlook that fact. A lot of those past stats are with Gibbs and a Toyota. This isn't a Chevy. RCR is always good there. He should have won. He won the Daytona 500. He didn't win the Daytona 530.
Yes.
He was 10th in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He won Talladega.
Yep.
He was 5th in Atlanta 2 and 7th in Daytona in the second trip. So he's been a top 7 car on super speedway. So that's why for those odds, you're getting a top 7 car. You've got to take him. I mean, I don't care what he's done in the past when you factor those into the equation.
Why?
So the only thing is the last driver to sweep Talladega was 2007. So it's been some time since that's happened.
Yeah, not an easy thing to do. That's for sure.
But
we're
you're getting good odds. Yeah, if I was getting 11-1, then I would say that's reaching. But no, you're getting good odds for that.
At 20-1, there are 5 drivers: Almirola, Chastain, Cindric, Larson, and Stenhouse. So forget Cindric. Things aren't going well for him. Best chance he has, he's got Logano and Blaney. So, you know, that's something. And he has a pretty good history in Xfinity Series, just hasn't translated over to the Cup Series yet. Stenhouse Jr., of course, won the 500 earlier this year. And he won this race from the pole back in 2017. We know it's a good track. We know the Super Speedways are good for Stenhouse. So, you know, he's always a potential long shot contender. And then you have Almirola, who won in 2018, but he doesn't have a top 10 in his last 6. And he hasn't really done anything this year. So you get the other 2 interesting ones, Chastain and Larson. So Larson, this year on these super speedways, his best finish is 18th.
Yeah.
He's got, 3 in the 30s, I think?
Yep, 31st, 33rd, 36th, and 27th are his finishes since that 18th.
And he's still at a reasonable number at 20. He should be more like 30 or, yeah, probably 30-ish. So, yeah, there's just no reason, especially when you're the type of driver that is a favorite on most weeks. Why would you invest money on him in this race just because of the odds? Because that's all you would be doing is
Yep.
hoping for madness, carnage, and chaos. 10 drivers are left, and he's one of them. That's your shot. That's how you get a chance, but that's asking an awful lot. At 20-1, it's not worth it.
No, and because you look at if there's 10 drivers left, he's probably one of the 30 that are in the garage. He's always been. I mean, he got 40 career starts between Daytona and Talladega. 40. One top 5.
Yep, that's impressive, actually. Very impressive.
Yeah, and it was here. It was 4th a few years ago, but yeah, that's not twice in 2 years. That's probably not happening, especially the way he's going. That's why I said he's in some serious trouble right now with being 2 points to the good. If Blaney wins, if Hamlin or Wallace gets stage points, and Kyle does the top 5, like we think he can, Larson's on the outside looking in.
What kind of strategy do you think they're going to employ? Do you think they're going to be really, really cautious and just hope that they're like way in the back and that, hey, you know what, we'll take 20th or 15th, because I know we're not going to come from all the way behind. We've mentioned that doesn't happen anymore, but we just can't finish in the 30s.
I think he goes for stage points to minimize that damage because odds are he's probably getting caught up in a wreck. I mean, his last 5 Talladega finishes are 39th, 40th, 40th, 37th, 4th. No, I'm sorry, it's more than 5. 39th, 40th, 40th, 37th, 4th, 18th, and 33rd.
That's pretty good.
That's not very good.
Yeah. That's like Harrison Burton or Ty Dillon territory.
Yeah, but you look at his starting spots since this race in 2021, 5th, 2nd, 9th. They have good super speedway cars. You're already up front. You're probably getting caught up at something. At some point, you get the points while you can. And I use Blaney as that example. With last week, he had 11 stage points, but he finished 28th or something like that. So, but he's only 7 points down, or it could have been a lot worse.
That makes sense.
So, if I were them, knowing odds are we're getting caught up in something, let's go ahead and get our points while we can.
Yeah, makes sense. And then Chastain won one of the races last year, finished 4th in the other. Didn't fare well this year, but overall, since he's been a better driver the last few go-arounds between the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, he's been pretty solid. And again, he came out of nowhere with that second-place finish last week. Maybe that's a good sign. I don't know. But, I just put money on him basically because I'll get my money back if he wins, but I'm not overly excited about him or anything like that.
Yeah, and he's the 14th ranked super speedway driver this year with the points scored. And I look at his finishes, 9th, 13th, 23rd, 35th, 17th. Where he's at, he just needs to play it safe. And I think he'll be all right to get to the round of 8 after that runner-up last week. I mean, he's got as many top 5s as playoffs as he had 14 races before. So I think he plays it smart. And then maybe he's there in the end, you never know. But his win, he led 1 lap that day.
Yeah.
That's all it takes, though. Keselowski the same year led 1 lap and won.
That's right.
So, and Kyle Busch this past year led 3 laps and he won.
Yeah.
So
it happens.
Don't have to lead a bunch of laps to win this race.
22-1, you got Bell. Now, this is, for me, I think I said I think I put a few bucks on him last week. Did well. So I'm going to do it again this week. Last year, as strange as it may sound, not really, I guess, because of the fact that, since last year, does he have the most poles?
I think so. He's got a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's the most. I think he's sitting on top for that.
So he had 2 on this track last year. He had a top 5 in his 2 Xfinity Series races, which is nice. But more importantly, 3rd at the 500 and 3rd at Atlanta in March. So he's okay. He's got the back-to-back top 5s. Seems like he's coming on at the right time. So I just felt, 22-1. I'll gamble a little bit on Bell.
I almost did. Playoff driver. 6th most points on super speedways this season.
Yeah.
So he runs well. His fall finishes 39th, 5th, 17th there. So he's not a great playoff racer there, but you get the feel they're starting to turn it around a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like the 8th, 3rd, 4th, the last 3 weeks, poles the whole first round. I'd say if there's a pole bet, he's got to be one of them.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he won them both last year. He
Yeah.
was 6th, started 6th in the spring race. So there's a good chance. I mean, he could steal one.
Yeah, it could.
We'll see.
Yeah.
22-1, it wasn't bad for it.
No, that's the thing. If he's 14-1, no thank you. But 22-1,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll see if I can steal some money there. Suarez and Jones at 25-1, and I put money on both. Suarez, of course, Chastain's partner, so they've both done well at this track the last couple of years with the new car. And Suarez also, if you look at it, he was second in Atlanta in July. Again, the rain and all that, but he was still second. 7th at the 500. And not only was he 9th this year, 8th last year, but when he had a bad result last year, I forget what the problem was, he led 28 laps in that race. So I think because of that, and Chastain is his partner, I was like, okay, if he wins, I want to make sure I get my money back.
Yeah, and he'll have a shot. It's the odds of the second career win, and he probably is going to push Chastain rather than
True.
But if Chastain falls into something, then he's by himself at that point. Yeah.
So if he can, yeah.
Jones, if he was a playoff driver, I'd be all over it. I mean, 6 top 10s his last 7 there, 5 of which in the top 6. 25 laps he led there in the spring last year, 23 more last fall. He was leading the white flag lap in those. 6th this past April, 8th and 11th in Atlanta. Everything tells you go for it.
Absolutely.
Should have won last. He had a top 3 car last week. Not for the pit.
He just needed, he needed a break and he couldn't get it.
Yep, he's starting to come around. So that's to me a big steal where he's sitting at. If you want to go with maybe we won't be a playoff driver. He's probably the top non-playoff driver I would say that can win this thing.
Yes, I out of the ones I put money on, he's definitely the top, and he's actually in his last 3 races at Talladega 6th, and 6th. So fantasy wise, hey. Definitely go for it. 28-1. You got Bowman, Briscoe, AJ Dillon, Gibbs, McDowell, Harvick, and Reddick. So you got a bunch of 28-1s. Out of those 28-1s, I put money on just one. And I was going to do 2, but like I said, I decided I just couldn't. That was Briscoe. You put money on Briscoe, so that's good. So we got Briscoe covered. And the reasoning here, so Briscoe has 4 top 15s and 5 cup races at Talladega with a 4th this year. And as far as Reddick goes, I really am surprised he's 28-1. Now you might say, well, it's why all these other Toyotas are getting good odds, because it's Toyota. All right, well then fine. Then I'll take it's Talladega, man. Anything can happen. So I'm putting money on Reddick at 28-1. He has an Xfinity Series win. He did that in 2019. It was his last Xfinity Series race at Talladega. And I know he doesn't have a great record so far, but he does have a couple top 10s over his career. And he was 5th at Atlanta. So I know I'm not trying to back him with all this great stats. But as I always said with these long shots, you always have to find something good. 1 or 2 things that if he wins, you go, okay, you see, there was something there. And that's what I see with Reddick. I'm seeing 28-1 on a driver that still, I know things didn't work out for him last week, but it was just a couple weeks ago. He was like the hottest driver. So all of a sudden, I'm going to just disappear on a 28-1 driver who's won an Xfinity Series race here. That's why I did it.
And he won the second playoff race of the round of 16. Why not the second round of 12? He fits the bill of he's below the top 8 in points.
He does.
He's sitting right there. He's going to get some drafting help. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt.
He will.
Briscoe, I went with, as you said, his stats. He dominated Daytona this few weeks or a month ago now. Was on the pole, had a good car. I do think he'll be more of a helper rather than getting helped. But, again, if the Stewart-Haas guys all line up and they don't want to help and they just want to help each other, he's going to probably be one of the ones in the lead group. So I feel good about him to be there. So that's why 28-1 was a no-brainer that way. Harvick, he's got 2 top 5 finishes in his last 22 Talladega starts.
Yeah,
19th most points on
weird.
super speedways this season, so that's why he was an easy fade for me that way.
Yeah. And then the other 20-1s, McDowell, not the worst
Oh, yeah.
idea because he was last year 3rd and 8th. He was
Yep.
4th in Atlanta in July. Gibbs, the only reason he had a bad finish this year, he had that fuel issue. And otherwise, he was up there. Dylan is Kyle Busch's teammate. He's going to be pushing Kyle, but he has a good teammate. Bowman, 5th and 6th at Daytona this year. He was runner-up in this race at Talladega in 2019. Now, at 30-1 and higher, I have money on 3 drivers. You have money on 1. You have money on Preece. I have money on Haley, AJ, and yes, Martin Truex Jr. So
you did it.
I finally did it because now I'm at the spot where we've been begging these guys to be at, which is 30-1. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting 30-1. And look, this is also important because we haven't done this in a while, but we've said it. We've said, don't understand why Truex has never been able to translate the Xfinity Series drafting to the Cup. And here's what we were talking about. From 2004 to 2006, Martin Truex won 3 straight races at Talladega in the Xfinity Series. That's how good he was on these on these super speedways. He also has a win in Daytona and a very good record there in the Xfinity Series. Whatever reason, it never translated. So I always looked at that as, well, not that he's not a good drafting driver. You can't just luck your way into 4 Xfinity Series wins. It's just, for whatever reason, the Cup car, whatever, it's just not working for him. Now, he's gotten a little bit better. We said this, I think, a Super Speedway show or 2 ago. He was 27th in the last Talladega race this year, led 19 laps. So for all of that, I just said, look, I know chances are he's probably not going to do well. He's in much better position than Larson, though. Well, not much, but he is in better position than Larson. And I could easily, so like you said, I can not only see one of these guys go out, but let's say they both crash out. Maybe both of them are in bad shape. But I just figured at 30-1. See, I feel better with Truex than I do with Larson.
Oh, yeah. Larson's odds, there's no reason. 20-1, there's no reason. He should be same odds as Truex. I mean,
yes, they should be both 30-1. So that's
like
why
you said, Truex he's got 104 starts between Daytona, Talladega, and the 4 at Atlanta. So he's got way more starts. I mean, Larson had 40. He's got 104. So he's got experience. He was 5th in the spring of last year, but he's also, his last 12 finishes there, 40th, 35th, 23rd, 26th, 23rd, 20th, 24th, 23rd, 31st, 12th, 5th, 26th, 27th. That's just, you never know. He's got the 17th most super speedway points, but out of those 104 starts, which I think is just wild to think about, he's never won. He has never won.
Well, I mean, just to think, if we're in one of those scenarios where it's the end of the race and there's 10 or 15 drivers and he's one of them and Larson's one of them, I feel 100 times better that I know Truex can probably find a way to win. He's done it before with these types of Larson. He ain't winning this race. So that's
you get better the odds.
Yeah. So again, if you're looking for long shots, he's a decent long shot. The other guy I did, AJ. Look, we talked about it before recently. He was really good in the Xfinity Series last year in these races. He won the race last year and was 3rd. So he's 1st and 3rd in both Xfinity Series races at Talladega last year. He was 6th in the 500. He was 3rd in Atlanta in July. He's 35-1. And then I also went with Haley because Haley, similar to Truex in a way, 5 starts in Xfinity Series, 5 top 10s with 2 wins. He swept 2020 in the Xfinity Series at Talladega, and I'm getting 65-1. Meanwhile, you decided your last long shot would be Preece.
Yeah, mainly because of their announcement yesterday of they're doing the shake and bake from Talladega Nights cars, him and Briscoe.
Okay.
So if I'm going to go with one, I might as well go with the other.
Okay.
And then, I think it's fitting. It's Talladega and they're doing this. Plus, he's got 2 top 10s there. 3rd as a rookie in 2019. And if you remember, he's been running up front of these races.
Yeah,
He
he's been up
just
there.
gets bad crashes. He flipped in Daytona. He would had a shot to win.
That was a
And
hell of a
this,
flip.
yep. And then this race, not this race, this track in the spring. Remember with Larson T-boned, he wrecked in front, and Larson was far enough back, didn't slow down in time, and T-boned him. I think he was running top 4, top 5 at that point. So he's been having speed. I think it'd just be ironic that these changes they made to the cars because of his wreck here in the spring, and then the wreck in Daytona in August, and he goes out and wins
Yeah.
this weekend. So
Well,
that
isn't
was
this the
more
whole
of a
reason why CJ kept him on his fantasy team?
maybe this is why.
I mean, I know he was expecting Priest to if he was going to win. I think he was expecting him to win on a super speedway.
Yeah, I mean this would be a good spot. I mean, again, Briscoe, Hart, they all had quick cars in Daytona, so we know they'll have speed. Just can they capitalize on it?
By the way, some other quick long shot notes. Hocevar is 45-1. He's never raced a Talladega on a Cup or Xfinity Series car, and he's 45-1. I think we're getting just a tiny bit carried away there, but
A little bit, yeah.
It's Talladega, so anything can happen. LaJoy, when it all comes down to it, I think LaJoy at this point in time, unless we get a top 5 finish at Talladega or Daytona, is Atlanta. That's where we'll go with LaJoy at. Gilliland has success in the Truck Series at Talladega, including a runner-up in 2019, and 2 top 10s out of 3 in the Cup Series.
Yeah, not bad.
Gilliland at 65-1. I'd rather have him than Hocevar. At least he's shown he could do it in the Cup Series. Now maybe Hocevar could have the same success Gilliland has from the truck to the Cup, but he has to prove that first. Yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. So, all right, now next week. Oh, before we go into that, I want to wrap up with the comments from. We've talked about Lana's comments, so we have others. I.E. Ronimo, 18. Great discussion, A+. Let's say we got an A+.
All right, I'll take the A+.
I.E. Ronimo, 18. I think this is the first time I.E. Ronimo has commented. Appreciate the research. So maybe he's a teacher.
We do a lot. I don't know if you could. Well, I guess the background's on there. I got a whole binder full of each week.
What's that?
So we got it for you.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all my research. Yeah.
Yes. That's how it's done.
Every week.
James Ford, you guys should do a little segment on fantasy lineup. Good content. Otherwise, James, we mentioned this before, and if you haven't heard it, we'll mention it again. If anybody out there, any of our viewers are part of or want to put together a fantasy league, and Eric and I will join, and we can find whatever 10 or 12 other of our loyal viewers to join us. We'll get involved. We're open to that. Matter of fact, I would be surprised by next year if we are not on a fantasy team or a fantasy league. That will be a part of the show. So send us some ideas if you have them. Let's see. What else do we have? Wayne Bilo, still in first in the year long. I'm sure with this fine YouTube reference, I will be number 1 and win the church pool. I pray for you boys. Thanks again. So Wayne's always got that church reference that makes me feel kind of funny. And I think that's it, because I always save the predictions, and I don't see because in case anybody has a top prediction, I'll make sure. I'm not going to call anybody out for the wrong predictions. So, but anyway, that'll wrap it up. If you have any predictions, put them in the comment section, and like I said, I'll save them and call you guys out if you pick a winner. And maybe next year we'll even come up with something like that too. We should come up with something fun. Maybe we can get a sponsor involved, do something where, pick a winner and you get something. But anyway, I'm thinking ahead of myself as always. Next week, it's another cutoff, and it's a road course.
The Roval. Yep.
So no change. I know you were praying for the change. It didn't happen.
Nope.
So we've got the Roval. It is what it is. And be excited about what happens on Saturday. And you will be, where are you going to be on Sunday, excuse me?
Well, it depends on weather. The dirt race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's the 71 car. They usually have like some of the big name Cup guys in it, but since it's not on the same Brickyard week, they're not running it this year. But it's a big USAC midget event here in Indianapolis.
Okay. And who's in that? Anybody?
It's nobody NASCAR relevant because they're not running it this year. But usually like Larson and Bell and Stenhouse and Briscoe and Allgaier, they're all running it. But this year they're not on the list.
Well, Eric is definitely going to be posting updated videos on the channel.
Yeah,
from time to time
this weekend. Yep.
So if he has anything to share, he will post it, and you can check out what Eric is taking a look at whenever he's on location somewhere. So Eric, appreciate your time as always, and we'll do it again next week.
Yep, sounds good.